Hi, welcome to this programming user interfaces demo video. We're going to be looking at how to use GitHub Pages to do some static web hosting for us. So the reason we probably want to use GitHub Pages is because we want to have our own domain name and we want to host some static files, HTML, CSS, JavaScript files that we want to serve, but we don't want to necessarily pay for a server or have kind of those options available to us. So what we're going to do is have our own custom domain name pointing to a GitHub Pages and serve that to the as a website. So the first thing, of course, we need to do is find a website. So there's lots of different providers and top level name domain registers you can use. I'm going to use this dynadot.com just because I've used it before, and I'm going to pick a extremely cheap site, right? So here, this .xyz is only 99 cents for a year, so let's use that one. So let's do PUI test.xyz. And so the first thing we're going to do is register the site, right? So here it is, 99 cents. So I'm going to add that to my cart, and I'm going to view the cart. This was the previous one I tested. All right, so I'm going to add this to the cart, and I'm going to do it for a year. I'm going to check out. All right, so I'm going to do this off the screen while I register everything, and then we'll be right back. All right, so now I have purchased the site or the domain name, and I have I'm looking at the kind of the control panel for it right here on the registrar. And so the way the internet works, of course, is that there's computers on the internet and they all have numbers assigned to them, and then this service called DNS provides a mapping between names and the numbers. And so this DNS setting basically tells computers on the internet when it's asking for a certain name, like PUI test.xyz, to say, okay, head over to this place, and that will be the server you want to talk to for that domain. So what we need now is some sort of hosting. We need that computer to host the actual content, right? And so we're going to be using GitHub Pages to do that. And so GitHub is basically a code repository that lets you, save your source code there in a format that can be revised, and you can have collaborators and all sorts of ways of managing your source code and doing stuff. So what we want to do is, the way GitHub Pages is that it's basically a web page based off of a GitHub repository. And so what we're going to do is make a new GitHub repository. So of course you have to have an account, and you'll sign in, and you go to your new repository, and let's call this PUI test. Let's call XYZ. Just to be complete there. And we'll say static web page. All right, so we're going to create this repository, and now it's created an empty repository. So now we actually need to have this this repository cloned locally to our computer to actually edit it and change it. So what we're going to do is, if you haven't installed it yet, you can go to these git install. So you can use the GitHub desktop installer if you want to. So you can just download this for your operating system, and it will install Git for you on the command line. Or you can use the GUI environment. So we're going to be using the command line, but you can do everything the same way in the GUI. All right, so once you have Git installed on your computer, you can take this URL here and open up your terminal, or use the GUI however you want to use. And we're going to make a new window here. What we want to do is go someplace on our computer that we can store this data. So I'm just going to go to my downloads. So I'm going to change directory into my downloads. And I'm going to make a directory called PUI tests. No, actually, I'm just going to, I'm not going to make a directory. I'm actually going to clone the repository directly here. So I'm going to say git clone and then the URL that I copied from the GitHub site. All right, so you have cloned empty repository. That's fine. So now we have a directory called puitest.xyz. So I'm going to change the directory into that directory. And now I have nothing in here. So what I'm going to do is, I could have all sorts of stuff in here. So I'm going to use my editor to make a index.html. And basically this index.html is going to be the homepage of the site that we're just doing a test with. So of course, we have to have HTML tags. Let's do it very quickly. There's going to be a head tag. There's going to be a body tag. I'm just going to have like h1 hello. All right, so we're going to save that. And what we're going to do is say git commit or git add everything in this directory. And we're going to say git commit new file. I'm going to say git push. So basically what we're doing is we're uploading that index file that we just created to the GitHub repository. You could actually do this on the GUI on the website and in the GUI itself. So you could actually add a file from here, and you say create a new file. You could call this like test HTML, and you could say do the same thing here. So you don't necessarily have to use a command line, but I'm just kind of showing it both ways here. All right, let's just quickly wrap this up. All right, so then I can just commit this file here. So I've done basically the same thing. One way I've done it from the command line, and one way I've done it from the website itself. So basically, this is the way you would add all files to the repository, and make them all available to be added to the repository. So once we have our website in there, you can make files, upload images, all sorts of stuff like that. We can go to settings. If we come down here, there is a pages section. And you can say source. You can say, okay, I want to serve a page from this repository, and I want to use this particular branch that was saved by default. And we'll use the default branch there. The next thing we can do is add a custom domain name. So they're saying, okay, your site is ready to be published here, and so this is the domain name that it provided. So the thing with these GitHub pages is that they take a few moments to refresh, and so you have to kind of give it a few, like a minute for the site to rebuild your site, and then eventually it should show up. But while it's waiting for that, what we can do is we can have custom domains forwarded to this site. So what we want to do is kind of read the documentation about how this works. So we have a custom domain, right? So eventually it showed up like this. Here's this puitest.ez. And this is kind of the custom domain I want to use for my GitHub Pages site. So what we want to do is read up on these making a custom page using a custom domain for our pages. So you can have different types of things here. You can have a subdomain like a www. You can have a custom blog, or you can have the full-on main domain like I'm going to have, right? So when I go to puitest.xyz, I want it to go to this GitHub Pages site, which let's see if it's still not done yet. It's still not refreshed yet. All right, so let's keep reading about this, and hopefully that comes back. All right, so we want to do this Apex domain. So we want to set up information on Apex sites. All right, so Apex domain is a custom domain that does not contain a subdomain. Apex domains are known as base, bare, naked, root, blah, blah, blah. Apex domain is configured with an A or alias or a name record through your DNS provider. So it says, it suggests using a www subdomain too. So if folks go to www.puytest.xyz, it also works if they just go to puytest.xyz without the www. All right. So what we're going to do is go to custom domains, and we're going to enter the domain that we want to use here. So we want to use our puytest.xyz site. And so what we're going to do is go to our pages here and put that in to the custom domain. And it says it's available there, but this is checking in progress. So we still have some more steps to do here. And it says navigate to your DNS provider and create either an alias, a name, or a record. For more information on how to do this, see your DNS provider's documentation. All right, to create an alias or a name record, point your Apex domain to the default domain for your site. For more information about this, okay. To create an A record, point your Apex domain to the IP address for Github Pages. All right. So we're going to create an A record and point it to these IP addresses here. So we're going to go back to our domain provider, and we're going to, in this case, they call it DNS settings. And we're going to call this, we're going to go to dyna.dns. And so this allows us to edit the kind of DNS record being sent for this domain name. And so we're going to say, okay, we want to have a record. That's what the site suggested we do, a record. And we're going to point into this IP addresses. So I'm going to go through each one of these. I'm going to go through each one of these. Say a record here. Going to add another a record. And point it to the next one. Add another a record. Point it to the next one. Add another a record and point to the last one. And let's add a www subdomain and point it to also to the same one. Or we could say maybe, yeah, we'll try that. All right, we're gonna set that time to live and save the DNS. All right, so now here is kind of the frustrating part where we have to wait for the DNS to propagate across the internet. So these changes are going to kind of go from server to server as they update over the course of, a few minutes to an hour. So it could take a while for those changes to propagate across the internet so that when I go to this site, it actually doesn't go to the parking DNS that was set to before, but actually goes to the GitHub pages that we set up. So I'm going to pause the video now and wait for that kind of process to happen. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I kept refreshing my domain name, and then I got this message saying, changes are happening, and then I refreshed it again, and I got this. So that's obviously the GitHub pages, and we can test it by going to a different page. Remember, we created a different page called test HTML, so that's there as well. So if we go back to the pages, we can, it gave us this error message, but then, if we refresh the page, maybe that will go away. All right, so it's probably working. It's going to give us a success message eventually. One nice thing about GitHub Pages is that it allows you to have it still works. Maybe it's still in process of checking because it clearly works here. So, we keep checking that later to make sure it comes back. But one nice thing is that you can enforce HTTPS once this works, and that will basically make your website be served over a secure socket layer. So it will be, HTTPS in your domain, which is what you want. You don't want to have an unsecured site. You rather have the HTTPS secure socket layer. All right, so this can go away. So this is always a trouble kind of interpreting what GitHub wants you to do versus what the DNS is set up to do, and you kind of have to wait for things to kind of shake out. So they're saying, this didn't go away. They're saying you should, we set up as A records, but we recommend you use a CNAME, pointing your record to your username at github.io. So this is my username, github.io. So I don't know why they want it set up like this, but we'll change our DNS record to match that. So we'll go back to here. We're going to go to DNS settings, and we're going to delete these that we just added. I'm going to change this to a CNAME and my username .github.io. I guess we'll change this as well to that. So save this DNS and we'll give it a few more minutes again and we'll see if it works. All right, so I waited for a few minutes there for the changes to propagate. Remember, we changed the DNS settings so that they were no longer A names. And really, I'm just following along with what the GitHub is telling me what to do. So they're saying, do it this way, don't do it this way, change it, doesn't look right, etc. So what we're going to do is test to make sure that this works by saying check again, and it's going to reload and test. And so now it looks like it's good. We can go to that page and refresh, and it works. And so now we can also enable HTTPS, so it will force the server to be secure, to only use secure socket layer when it's being served. So that might also take some time to, work, but let's see, HTTPS:// yeah, so it's secure, right? So that's very nice. It's a kind of a free little benefit there. So the next thing we want to do is you populate the site with whatever HTML, CSS stuff you have. So for example, say you were working on a new project, and you have an existing glitch project that you've been working on, and you want to kind of transfer it to this GitHub Pages. Right, so what you would want to do is see if you could download this information to kind of get it working on the GitHub page. So I don't think they offer kind of like a way to just wholesale download the entire site. But what you could do is just go through the pages that you've created and download them and add them to your new site, right? So, you can do it this way, go over to your GitHub sites. You could edit the pages. You could, edit it on your desktop, or you could edit it here in the editor and transform over that way. You could also download stuff from the command line. So, if you wanted to like save certain assets and images and save them there, you could also download them via, by getting their network address. So these are all assets that are being loaded here. So there's like the home page, which is the index HTML, the styles page. You could save this as file and save it to your directory and then commit it. So for example, save this here, save it as style CSS. So if I looked in my directory here, there's style CSS. I could git add, git commit style, git push, right? And so, so I made some changes, so I needed to git pull first, but then I could git push. And so, you don't have to use the command line at all. You can just use the editor, the website editor, but you can even use a GUI. You can have multiple ways of getting files onto the actual repository itself. And then, you can see that this file is there. So then it would be available, at that directory style.css. So, you can rebuild the site however you need it to be, and GitHub Pages, and now you have basically free hosting, and you just commit whatever static information or static files you want up there, and it will just serve them for you. So this is a really good option, for basically a free hosting option that you don't have to pay for. It just takes a little bit of startup and kind of legwork to get the domain DNS stuff sorted out, and then actually getting the data, the files up onto the GitHub repository to be served. But that's it for this static hosting demoing the GitHub pages. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.